Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game called PWNs, a game of strategic mayhem from the company Awry Games. That game is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter, so if you're interested after watching the rest of this preview video, hopefully, you will go to the official Kickstarter project page and find out even more information than I could possibly tell you here. I will eventually have links up in the top corner of your screen as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Now, what is PWNs? This is, well, as you can tell, it is has a sense of humor to it because, of course, PWNs is the internet slang terminology for basically getting your butt handed to you, or for being one of the people that does that to others, or something to that effect. So in this game, you are taking control of a group of very comical looking troops who are trying to take out your opponents. And you're doing this with a wide variety of special attack cards, reaction cards, elemental cards that actually change the face of the battlefield, and you have to take that into account as well because there's lots of different things going on with the terrain and how to use it to your advantage and to have your opponents force you to use it to your own disadvantage or something to that effect. But you also have special abilities that you can throw into the mix as well as multiple different game modes. Let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played with a prototype version of the game. So I want to stress that whatever you see here in the overview section may be different than what you see in the final version, but in any event, we're going to come back. I'll give you my final thoughts. PWNs is a competitive game for up to 4 players. In a 3 or 4 player game, the goal of the base mode of play is to have the most points at the end. The end occurs when one player loses their last remaining PWN unit. Then, each player gets 3 points for every surviving PWN, and 1 point for every hit point remaining on all of the PWNs. In a 2 player game, the winner is whoever can take out all of their opponent's units first. To set up the game, lay out the board, and then randomly select 4 large map tiles to assemble and create the map. Different terrain has different effects. Grass and dry grass can catch on fire, which can deal 1 persistent damage to PWNs if that happens, and water causes your PWNs to take damage if they're forced to swim out. There are additional pieces of terrain you can add to the board, or that will be added via card effects, such as fire, ice, and instant kill holes. There are also several ability tokens, effects counters, a die, and a deck of action cards that you'll shuffle. Each player starts with a set of PWN unit cards in a color of their choice. Each PWN starts at 4 health. You also have a standee for each one, which is placed in the starting area along your edge of the board, but not in the water. Each player also starts with 4 to 5 cards from the deck, depending on the number of players. Players choose someone who will start, and then you begin. Each turn is broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1 is movement. You have 3 points of orthogonal, not diagonal, movement to use amongst all of your remaining PWNs. For instance, you could make one PWN move 3 spaces, or make one of them move 2 spaces while another one moves 1 space. Remember to try and avoid hazardous spaces, and moving into a space occupied by another PWN forces you both to take a damage, and you can't use a card this round. Phase 2 involves using an action card. You can use an attack or an elemental card. Attack cards let you deal direct damage or negative effects to enemy PWNs, either at range or in hand-to-hand. Each card will dictate the range and the damage, as well as how far the enemy may be forcibly moved. Elemental cards change the board state drastically by adding different terrain tiles to the mix. There are also reaction cards, which may be played in response to other effects in order to help out your PWNs. Finally, in Phase 3, you can play the final type of card, which are health cards. These can heal 1 or more of your PWNs. You may choose to throw ability tokens into the mix as well. Each PWN will start off with one of them at random, and if you take out an enemy PWN, you can claim a second one by taking it from them. For instance, Fast Foot increases that PWN's movement by 1 automatically, while Combat Specialist adds +1 damage to their attacks. There are also variant game modes like Capture the Flag and Last PWN Standing, but in any normal mode, whoever has the most points at this point, counted from remaining PWNs and their remaining hit points, will be the winner of the game. Well, of course, Pwns' greatest asset is its sense of humor and its lightheartedness. From the artwork to the drawings to just the very aspects and nature of the gameplay, which is confrontational but very lighthearted and confrontational. All these things really make that lighthearted theme permeate and come through. And I think that's very important because this game is aiming to be a game that's accessible to a lot of different gamers, not just gamerly gamers who are into more strategic games. And it is strategic; it's right there in the title of the game, in the subtitle of the game at least, but also to appeal to younger gamers, to appeal to more casual gamers, people who would actually understand the Pwn terminology, who might only play video games, but now might be more enticed to play a board game as well. So it's definitely meant to be more accessible in that regard. And it is easy to get into. It's very fast to learn. It's very fast to play. You can actually just jump right into it, even with very little experience of modern board games and all of their complexity by necessity. Now, the other thing is that there's a lot of interesting things going on with the game. You have all different types of cards, attack cards. It's interesting that health is a whole different phase, and there is a whole different type of card that you have to worry about for that's on top of your attack cards and your reaction cards and the elemental cards as well. And the elemental cards is an interesting thing too, because it's not just like, hey, here's some map tiles and that's how it's going to be for the duration of the game. The elemental cards can switch things up and force you and your opponents to think on the fly about how you're going to manipulate your troops and how you're going to move them around the battlefield, taking into account everything else that's going on at the same time, which might even include the special abilities, which are a neat thing to throw into the mix because they give you wildly different powers, and because at the start of the game, if you use them, everyone has one unique power that makes everybody different, although you could potentially take another power from someone else once you defeat them. The games run fast. Like I said, there's different game modes you can do, like capture the flag. That's entirely up to you which way that you want to do it. And at 2 players, it also works as well as it does at 4 players or 3 players. So if any of these things seem to strike a chord with you, if you like the lighthearted nature of the game, or just the fact that it's so accessible and easy to get into, you should definitely check out the official Kickstarter project page. The campaign is ongoing right now. You can find out more information there than I could possibly tell you here, and hopefully you'll consider backing Pwns, the strategic board game from Awry Games. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.